Welcome to the Confident Explorers Parent Session. My name's Chelsea, and for the next 20 minutes or so, we'll be talking about the skills and tools to help your child in their future. This is an interactive session and we'd love to hear from you. You can use the chat function to say hi, ask a question, or share any ideas or thoughts. So, what's today's session all about? Well, we're here to talk about opportunities for your child's future and how you can help them develop core skills and confidence to follow their ambitions and career dreams. Now, of course, we know that every parent and carer is different. You may have really clear ideas about what you'd like your child to do in the future. You may not know yet, or perhaps you just haven't even started to think about it too seriously. And don't worry if not. But it's never too soon to start thinking about the important skills your child may need. Today's session is all about some of those important skills, namely computing and coding. This is supporting a new education programme called Confident Explorers, which has been developed by ParentZone, supported by Google. It aims to help UK primary school children build skills and confidence in computing and coding, and support parents in helping their child learn about computer science. Okay, let's pause for a sec. How do you feel about computing and coding? You may have got involved in some computing and coding homework in the last few years. Maybe your child goes to computing or coding club, or maybe you don't know much or anything about it. And don't worry if that's the case, because you are not alone. Today, we'll talk a little bit more about what computer science and coding actually means, why it's so important to develop skills and confidence in tech, how anyone, including you and your child, can get involved, and we'll also give you some ideas about what you can do next. We're also here to answer any questions, so don't be afraid to ask anything. There are no silly questions here. If you don't understand something we say, or you just want a little bit more information, pop it in the chat and we will do our best to help. Now, I'm sure when you hear words like algorithm, variable, or sequencing, you may start to think about things like this. But when we talk about computer science and coding, it's something that plays a big part in your everyday life, even if you don't always realise it. In its most basic form, we use something called computational thinking to do something as simple as making a sandwich. Now, you know you have to put the sandwich filler between the slices of bread, or put your underwear on before you put on your outerwear. Or at least I hope so. Now, that's just basic computational thinking, figuring out simple actions in sequence to achieve something or solve a problem. And this is something that we're teaching children in primary schools, how to communicate with computers and how coders create algorithms to help us solve everyday problems. And you've almost certainly used algorithms today. Maybe it was putting the washing machine on. That used an algorithm to set your cycle. The last time you searched for something online used an algorithm. And by watching here with us today, you are using one right now. And all of these algorithms were created by a person or a coder to help you do what you need. Computing and coding is all around us, and it comes from people figuring out ways or sequences to solve problems. Now, before we look a little bit closer about how and why we teach computing and coding, I'll introduce my colleague Tim, who'll be responding in the chat and picking up any questions you might have.
Thanks, Chelsea. Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to our Confident Explorer session. Now, as we said, I'll be answering your questions in the chat, so do fire anything you want answering in there, or just say hi and let us know that you're watching. And if you are watching, please do let us know where you're watching from today. Now, we've had some parent questions sent in by email. If you have any questions, like I said, do pop those in the chat and we'll try and answer as many as we can. So, here's the first one we've had in. And it's, my kids are fairly confident using computers or when they get hold of my phone to watch YouTube. So why is computer science different? And thanks to Jane from Hastings for sending that one in. Well, it's a really good question because many children have learnt to use computers and technology at a younger age than before, especially in the past few years where more education has been done online. But computing and coding is different because it's learning about how computers and computer programs work. It's teaching them to be creators of content, not just consumers. So, for example, computer science education covers things like computational thinking, algorithms, and sequencing. If that sounds complicated, well, it is, and it isn't. Once you see how they can help your child, it can become a lot less complicated. Now, back to you, Chelsea, to explain a little bit more.
Thanks, Tim. Now, I know all this sounds super complicated for children in primary schools, but computer science is a key part of primary education, computing and technology curriculums in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and for good reason. The curriculums all focus on the development of the same core skills. Some are very tech-based, like understanding the principles of computer science, computational thinking, programming and coding. But these curriculums also look at the opportunities around jobs now and in the future. And it includes elements of literacy, numeracy and problem solving that support children's overall developments. Now, it's a bit like online safety. Just as we know it's important to teach children to be safer online, we also need to start thinking about equipping all children with the skills and, more importantly, the confidence to use technology. In doing so, we can give them a better chance to explore whatever career ambitions or dreams they might have. And this is the really important bit about why we're here today. We can't do any of this without your help. It's only with a parent's support that we can really help children see and understand that these are transferable, essential skills for their future. Research shown that parents are key influencers when it comes to their children's subject and career choices. Your child will highly value your advice and opinions, so it's always better to be prepared. But don't just take it from me. Kyrome Adams is a Year 6 educator from Huddersfield who joins us now to explain a little bit more about the importance of computing education and confidence.
We teach computer science in schools to prepare children for future career prospects. Information technology is about the use of computers for functional purposes, such as collecting and presenting information, or using search technology. Digital literacy is about the safe and responsible use of technology, including recognising its advantages for collaboration or communication. Finally, computer science will introduce children of all ages to understanding how computers and networks work. It will also give all children the opportunity to learn basic computer programming, from simple floor robots in Year 1 and 2, right up to creating on-screen computer games and programs by Year 6. It's definitely not too early for parents to be thinking about skills for their children's future careers. Understanding computers and learning the basics of coding helps children to develop an appreciation of how things work. It also teaches them how software engineers use math in order to solve problems in a logical and creative way. Researchers say that an early education in mathematics and other STEAM fields can improve a child's learning abilities and narrow the gaps between a children's educational achievements. By making STEAM interesting to a child at a young age, you can improve their chances of greater success later in life. It can be easy for any child to get involved in computing and coding. Computer science is part of the national curriculum. Use a local library for free if you don't have any technology at home. Support from a parent means a child may have opportunity to develop in the computing field. By experimenting, children can foster their talents and learn through their mistakes. Coding is complex, challenging and can be incredibly frustrating, but it also can teach us from a young age how to solve problems and look for solutions.
Thanks, Kyrome. Now I know there have been some comments in the chat, so let's quickly head back over to Tim to hear what you've said.
Thanks, Chelsea. Now we have another parent question, and it's from Maura from Edinburgh, and she says, what if my child doesn't want to be a programmer or an IT technician? How does computing and coding help? Thanks, Maura. This is something that many parents might wonder, and of course, not everyone wants to be a programmer, coder, or work with code in the future. But learning about computing and coding really doesn't have to mean spending a lot of time on screens or developing code for a living. At the heart of it, computing and coding can teach children really useful and transferable skills that can work in whatever you do in life. So, for example, problem solving can apply to anything, and it's a skill we need to use on a daily basis as an adult. It can be simple stuff like making dinner and washing up. It might be a bit more complicated, like fixing the brakes on a bike. And building confidence with technology is just as important in everyday life. You could be using an online system to pay for school dinners, or it could be something you do in a job, like running a company's finances, or, I don't know, maybe running the chat functions in a live online event. As the UK computing curriculum says, it helps children be responsible, competent, confident and creative users of information and communication technology. Back to you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Tim. Now I'm sure you can see why these are really valuable skills for the future. Computing and coding offer careers into many jobs that use technology. It'll be valuable for many jobs of the future as well. Coding and computing skills can open up many doors to well-paid positions. And as technology continues to play a bigger role in our lives, the competition for these types of careers are decreasing. Now, of course, you might want to explore about careers that use computing skills, and we have a link to code.org where you can find out more about the diverse types of career opportunities using these skills. We'll also share a link in the chat to the Parent Zone site where you can find all the links for today's session. So that will be in the chat for you. But do you know what? You might be thinking, yep, Chelsea, that is all very well and good. But my child wants to be a mechanic, a fashion designer, a baker. How does technology get them involved? And you know what? That is a fair question. But think about the way the world has changed over the recent years. There may be many new careers in computing and coding, or those that include elements of them. But there are jobs that may require computing skills that might be changing. So for example, your child might really want to work in hair or in a service industry. Well, they might have to use online booking systems or online banking and business management tools. They may want to be a sports coach or work in health and fitness. Well, many sports coaches use computers to track an athlete's fitness and their performance. Your child might want to be a mechanic or another tradesperson. Well, they may need those same business management tools, or maybe, like a mechanic, use computers to run a wheel diagnostic check on a car. If your child's passionate about climate change and renewable energies, using technologies may play a big role in how you study or affect the changing environments. Now, they may also want to go into video production, meaning they can use green screen technology. You see, we're not even in this room here. That's what tech can do for you. Now, I think the other room looked a little bit better, so let's go back there, shall we? Haha, thank you. Now the list goes on. Technology plays a growing role in most of the jobs and careers you see around us. Not to forget too, all the jobs and careers that may not even exist yet. Now these are transferable skills for everyone, which is why we teach them in primary schools. Computing and coding is like learning a modern language, except that coding and computing literacy is a language that's increasingly spoken everywhere. In many ways, it's a great leveller for all children, whatever their gender, background, ability or interests. And whilst that might be true, there still are some underrepresented groups when it comes to computing and coding, and not just in the workplace, but sometimes in school computing, coding, technology and STEM clubs. Now for me, it would be great to see more girls getting involved in computing. It's definitely not just a thing for boys. Now there are several computing and coding initiatives that are inclusive to girls and some that are directly aimed at getting more girls involved. Now you can find out some links in the chat and in the video description where you can find out more. As technology develops, coding and computing is also becoming more accessible to everyone. Our next guest is Paul Carter, a technology journalist who can explain more about how computing and coding is becoming more accessible to all.
So as a technology journalist, computers and technology help me do my job on a day-to-day basis. From finding stories to making the programs that I do, it's kind of central to everything. Now, I was very lucky that I learnt about technology and I learned how to use computers at a very young age, and that's kind of set me in really good stead kind of throughout my career. I mean, the thing is to say I'm not a software programmer, I'm not a coder, I don't write software, I don't kind of design tech myself, but I travel the world looking at new technologies and meeting really interesting people and having an understanding of how those things work, really kind of helps put me in a really good place. As someone with a disability, I think one of the great things about coding and computing skills is that they are something that's extremely accessible for disabled children, and even so, much more so than when I was a kid. Assistive technology is more prevalent, and children with even the most kind of complex impairments or support needs now can be enabled to use computers or other kind of technologies at a really young age and appreciate all of the benefits and the rewards that come with that. The advice I'd have mainly for children in computing is that the world's waking up to the potential that disabled people have, and particularly disabled children have. And, there are always new ways being found to help them unlock that potential. And technology is just, it plays such an important role in this. And I would say disabled people are essentially problem solvers, right? We solve problems all day, every day. And coding is just an extension of problem solving. And so I would say that it's absolutely something to not be afraid of, and it's an absolute gift for disabled children, and I think it's something that really should be embraced. I would say that computing and coding confidence is massively going to help kids going forward, and there's a simple reason for that, right? Technology is increasingly becoming a part of all aspects of modern life. You don't need me to tell you that. It's everywhere. But I think the issue is that even careers that traditionally might not have been kind of technology based, they're becoming much more integrated into that world, whether it's kind of things becoming more digitally focused or through apps, but also, just ideas around the way we work. I understand that tech can be scary to some, and it doesn't always have the best reputation, but it does have the power to do so much good things as well as all the negatives, and we need the next generation to help us along, and so I'd say just encourage it and dive in and see the positives and the possibilities.
Thanks, Paul. Now, I know there've been some more questions in the chat, so let's quickly head back over to Tim to hear what you've been saying.
Thanks, Chelsea. Do remember, if you do have any questions for us, do put them in that chat and we'll do our best to answer them. But we've had another one emailed into us, and it's a really good one. And this is Patrick from Bideford, and he says, my child spends so much time on screens. I'd rather they joined a sports club or did something a bit more creative. Thanks, Patrick. So this is a big one for many parents, and again, it makes complete sense. Excuse me, the past 2 years have seen children spend even longer online. I think all parents have at one time or another wanted their child to take a screen break and spend more time outdoors doing outdoor activities. And of course, it's really important to find that healthy balance between screen time and other hobbies and activities. It's really easy to picture children in a dark, windowless room staring at lines of code on a screen, but that's a bit of an unhelpful stereotype. Computing and coding education clubs are really social and collaborative, working in teams to problem solve and create new programs, and coding can be really creative. A good example is Japanese programmer called Satoshi Tajiri, who incidentally has Asperger's syndrome. He mixed a childhood love of collecting insects with a love of video games and skills with computer science. And he ended up creating something called Pokemon, which you're probably aware of. Pokemon is now one of the biggest money-making media franchises of all time, so I'd say that's pretty creative. Thanks for your questions. Do please keep sending them in. And in the meantime, I'll hand back to you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Tim. Computing and coding can be fun, creative, social and collaborative. Collaborative is a really important word because coding is something that you can try at home with your child too. Now, if you have access to a connected device, there are loads of apps and platforms with easy coding activities to get started. And don't worry if you're not sure how to code, because many of these offer step-by-step ways to pick up some coding basics, learn some new words and phrases, and build your computing and coding confidence. CS First and Scratch are two great places to start, whilst Raspberry Pi has a parent guide where you can explore a bit more, and we'll pop those links in the chat. And getting involved in computing and coding really doesn't mean hours of screen time. If you don't have access to a connected device, or you'd rather do something away from screens, there are some great offline coding activities you can try too. CS Unplugged is a great place to start, and again, the link for that is in the chat. Now, as we said earlier in the session, we really need your help because you play such a massive role in helping your child start to think about what they want to do in the future. Parents can influence their children positively. Now, maybe you're super confident with computers or technology yourself. Maybe you feel a little bit more like this. Maybe it's something that nobody in your family or community has ever done before. Or maybe you spend all your time on computers and you want your child to do something else. But your support and encouragement is the most crucial thing in helping your child build up their skills and confidence. If they see you taking an interest, it can help them to feel more confident and explore how it could support them in developing new skills, follow that dream of theirs, and maybe one day find a career. Now we're nearly finished, and before we talk about what you can do, I'll pass back to Tim in the chat.
Thanks, Chelsea, and thanks everyone for sticking with our session today. Now we have one final parent question, and it's Sally from Ripon, and she says, I'd like to find out about other coding activities or clubs for my daughter. Where should I look? Thanks, Sally. As mentioned, there are lots out there you can try for free, online and offline. Your school may have a computing, technology, robotics or STEM club. You can always check on the school website or ask one of the teachers. And as your child moves to secondary school, many of these will also have coding clubs that your daughter can join. You might be able to find a coding club in your area too. Now, Code Club lets you search for a coding club nearby, and I'll pop the link in the chat after this section. Now I'm going to pass back to Chelsea to give you some more ideas. Thanks again for taking part, and I'll be on the chat after the end of the session if you want to ask any more questions. Back to you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Tim. So we're nearly done, and I am so thankful that you took the time to join us today. But before I go, I'm going to be a little bit pushy and ask you to challenge yourself to do 3 things after this session. So here we go. 1, keep open-minded. Computing and coding is a fantastic way to learn confidence and skills around technology. Remember, it's not just for careers in computing, but building a bunch of brilliant personal skills and tools for the future that anyone can benefit from. 2, try some coding for yourself. Now we've got some fun ways for you to get involved, so check out our blog and the links for that are in the chat. We'll add some more links at the end with websites and apps you can try. And finally, if you only do one thing, do 3. Encourage your child. Have a conversation with them about computing and coding. Find out what they think, what they enjoy, what they don't, and talk to them about how the skills and confidence with computers and technology can really help them achieve their dreams. You can help them become a confident explorer, and who knows what amazing places that can take them. And that's it. Now, if you could do one more thing, we popped a link for a short survey in the chat to let us know what you think. You'll also find this survey in the video description, along with links to all the resources we've mentioned today. Thank you so much for watching today. From me, from Tim, and from everyone at the Confident Explorers team, bye.